Hi, and welcome to an application introduction by Processit for the clients, teams, and friends of Digital Tarka Studios. Today we'll be looking at a Gantt chart integration created by TeamGantt for Basecamp. Now, before I hop into what a Gantt chart is, I'd just like to explain how the cross-sync functionality works between Basecamp and TeamGantt, right? Right, so you'll be more familiar with this Basecamp setup. Over here you have your latest projects and your to-do lists. Okay, so over here you can see that the to-do lists you have a bunch of these over here in the phase 1, and a few of them have actually been completed, right? So the rest of them, the completed ones, are in this side over here. Now when you hop on over to TeamGantt, you can sort of see the previous set of lists that have been completed, right? And you can see the active data is highlighted in red. So this gives you a clear indication of the amount of work that's been finished off. So what is a Gantt chart? A Gantt chart is basically a tool that helps you visualize your project over a time span. And you can set multiple dependencies, and you can set assets and time management. And you can indicate completion, and you can highlight milestones. Okay, so just off the foot, I'd like to mention some limitations of Basecamp and as to why we're using TeamGantt. So over here we have Basecamp to-do list, and over here you can see that we can assign it to an individual, and the limitation over here is that you can only assign it to one person. Also, you can only set a due date, so you can't really indicate the process, as in a few days of time that it'll take to make something possible, to check something off a list. Right? And one of the other things, among many other, is that you can't set dependency. For example, if I was to say that digital literacy tutorials could only happen after social integrations were set up, I wouldn't be able to indicate that here properly. But the minute I hop into TeamGantt, I can create these dependencies very easily. Right? So we have the digital literacy tutorial. So this is dependent upon the social integration, which I believe is this one right here. You can see this little dependency line. It basically helps us understand that what tasks are dependent upon each other, right? And then it helps you move them around and be more optimal with your time. Okay, another cool thing about a Gantt chart is that it indicates completion. So over here we have the top phase, and inside over here you can see the darker color, and this darker color is achieved by hitting 100%. So in this scenario, let's say that we finished off 50% of the social integration, and you can see that it hits this halfway mark with the darker blue. Also, what you can see over here is that the main project list gets updated. Right, now the cool thing about the cross sync is that when we head back into Basecamp, we can see this little 50%. This helps us understand that 50% of the task is completed. So you don't actually have to go into TeamGantt every time to get an update. You can always just have a look at Basecamp. Right. So also, if I were to just to mention, if I were to change this percentage via Basecamp, it would then, okay, let me just see if it changes there. All right. Okay, so refreshing this allows us to see instantaneous changes on TeamGantt, right? So that's the fun part about cross-sync. Changes made here affect there and vice versa. I'd just like to mention that in most scenarios, our clients will not have working access to TeamGantt. You will, of course, have previewing access, which allows you to see the various Gantt charts and how the project is supposed to progress over the time period. And this will allow you to have a clear understanding of our requirements from you in certain scenarios, or our deadlines, our internal deadlines for certain developments, and as to how they will become available to you. Another feature of the Gantt chart is that you can set who's responsible for the task. So over here you can select individuals, And this allows you as the client or an external team to understand who's in charge of the task, and you can communicate with them directly. So you don't have to always interact with the lead designer. One of the last features of a Gantt chart is the milestone. Now, milestone is more of an opinion rather than an actual sort of figure that, let's say that you finished out 50% of a task or 100% of a task. But these are very fixed, whereas a milestone is more of an opinion based. So I feel that you finished off half of a project, or you hit a benchmark which makes you happy, or you'd like to remember, perhaps. Right. So no, haven't completed this milestone yet. Right. So you can set the dependencies on this as well. This basically helps you highlight, okay, that based on this task I've completed this milestone, and based on this task I've completed this milestone. Right. So you can see that the dependencies can be intermingled. Okay. So another feature of TeamGantt is that it allows you to have comments and uploaded documents, but at Digital Darka, we refrain from using this interface, as our master application for managing information and content and discussions is going to be through Basecamp. Right, so please just keep that in mind. Okay. Another feature that we will not be supporting is the calendar, which means that in Basecamp we have some calendar entries, so you won't be seeing these come up in TeamGantt unless it's an absolute requirement or it's a project specification where the project itself is based on a calendar event. Just before we end this introduction, I'd just like to mention that TeamGantt has a bad habit of being very dodgy from time to time, as usually sometimes the integration does not sync so well, and you might get some odd results when you're trying to query a page. In that case, just refresh or perhaps close the tab and just open it anew. Right? As always, thank you for watching, learning and supporting Digital Darka. Please thumbs up this video if you found it helpful. Thanks.